Hello, it's just me here for my weekly broadcast. Now, I'm always slightly worried about the church trying to be trendy because I'm not sure it ever is going to be or whether it's going to do it terribly well. So perhaps a warning of this is I was at Greenbelt Festival quite a few years ago now, and I went along to a Eucharist in which all the music was the music of a beat combo called U2 that you might have heard of. They're older than me, an Irish band, huge band, huge success, and went along. And very much the kind of promotion of this was, this is the sort of thing that young people engage with, rock music speaking to them. And I went along, and in some ways it's quite good. And I noticed there were sort of certain sort of aged, how shall I say, men of a certain age with perhaps a bit sort of wide around the waist than they used to be, sort of punching the air and jolly along to these U2 songs. I noticed they were all sort of 35, 40, perhaps even a bit older. And I wondered, well, is this really sort of reaching out to youth? And strange enough, actually, I in my little party at the time at Greenbelt, there was with me a 16-year-old young woman, and I asked her. Did that speak to you? Did you know the music and that? And she said, it was one of those sort of damning replies I've ever had. She said, well, I didn't know any of the songs, she said, so it felt a bit odd. She said, I think there's one song I recognised because my dad likes listening to it. And I thought, yeah, that's the Church of England reaching out and trying to be trendy. So anyway, I'm going to reach out by quoting a U2 song to start with. Not only that, one of their first songs. Can't quite remember when it was. It was a song about the Irish Troubles, them being an Irish band. Sunday, Bloody Sunday, and the line in it is, the battle's just begun to claim the victory Jesus won. And it's an interesting line because it sums up actually something that is actually a real New Testament concern, and I think really speaks to us today in our particular situation. So, going back to the New Testament, obviously Jesus has died, has risen, and is ascended to heaven. And the first Christians are making their communities and their churches together. And we know a bit about their life from Acts of the Apostles and Paul's letters to them. And of course, very quickly, although things in one sense go very well, things also in various places kind of do go off the rails. People make mistakes, and Paul is always having to write, particularly to sort of, just make sure that people stay on the right track. And if you like, there are sort of two ways in particular that people go off the track. That is, the first one is that they think, although Jesus has come and everything I've described has happened, it doesn't really change anything today, particularly amongst those who were originally Jewish. So, in other words, they would be carrying on all the Jewish customs and the law, etc., etc., going to the temple if they're in Jerusalem. And moreover, perhaps more importantly, when Gentiles became part of their communities, expecting them basically to convert to Judaism and take on all of the sort of rules of the Jewish law at the time. And Paul is quite clear to them. He says, no, Jesus Christ has come. He's changed. He's offered the sacrifice that means we don't need to keep repeating sacrifices, for instance. And then there's a group on the other extreme, what theologians call those who believe in an over-realized eschatology. That's rather a posh phrase. What it means is that those who think that rather too much has changed, and we get a bit of this in perhaps particularly the Corinthian church, that actually Jesus has come, the new age is here, all the old morality is out of the window, do as you please. Really, it is Liberty Hall. There are no rules. You can do whatever you like, even when it comes to sort of sexuality and promiscuity. It is, just do as you please. This is the kingdom here and now. And Paul has to say, no, No, the kingdom isn't quite here like that yet. We still have to live good moral lives. It's not that we might have to sort of keep every single law that Jewish people kept before Jesus. But on the other hand, we're not, we can't just do as we please. There is still a morality that has to be lived. And Paul is sort of a middle line between those two. And I suppose, as we are today, and I suppose every so often those battles reignite themselves, don't they? Either people being so very strict about following the rules, or people saying, there are no rules at all. Don't worry about it. So, Christians have always tried to think, well, what's the way to live a good moral Christian life without becoming overzealous and legalistic about these things? And that sort of repeats itself. And so we live for Christians in what is, theologians call this sort of in-between time, this sense that now, Jesus has come, it changes everything. We are right with God. He is the sacrifice once for all offered for our sins, etc. And yet, in a sense, day to day, there is still the need to live a good moral life, to deal with human sin and suffering. We haven't entered the kingdom of heaven yet. That is still yet to come. It's the now and the not yet, which of course goes back to that U2 song. Battle's just begun to claim the victory Jesus won. I wonder then, that's obviously just an interesting reflection as we think about Jesus coming, but I wonder if that's also sort of the situation we're in with COVID. Because we sort of know the answer. We hope we do. It very much looks as though the vaccinations are hopeful, and it looks as though that will be the answer. And I know that people have already had at least the first shot of the vaccines amongst our parishioners. Obviously, it's a huge logistical effort to get that, well, let alone through our population, but really to spread it throughout the world as well. And our prayers are very much with those who are out rolling that out at the moment. But of course, we are in sort of that in-between time. We have the answer. We're starting to put it in, but we haven't really reached the freedom of the kingdom, well, anywhere near yet. In fact, the danger, day to day at the moment, and probably for certainly weeks, certainly months actually, is going to be roughly the same. Of course, we'll protect the most vulnerable, which will actually reduce the risk and the strain on the health service. But we are talking about, as I say, several months before enough of the population is vaccinated, enough of the vulnerable and older people are, that we can start really sort of relaxing the rules and returning to normal. So we are in that kind of situation with COVID of a now and not yet. We do sort of know the answer. The answer is coming into effect, but we're not there yet. And particularly over Christmas, as we're being warned, and then into next year, we are going to have to be sensible and stick by the restrictions. Hopefully, as we get out of winter, we'll be able to ease them gradually as more and more people are vaccinated. But yeah, it just struck me that was quite a good analogy for where we are now. That sense of, yes, in a sense, we have the answer, it is now, but also it is not yet. Thank you. Cheerio.